right before I did that, I was in like a 3 or 4 year rut with my art where I was just like, I don't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
I stopped drawing, I stopped sketching. I was probably, as the artist in me was dormant and depressed and wasn't happy.
Yeah.
But I started seeing online, because I never stopped looking online for inspiration. I started seeing online all these images of awesome stuff that I hadn't seen before. And it was 3D sculpture coming from Zbrush Central. And I was like, what is this? I gotta learn this. And I'm watching this for 4 years before I even jump in.
It's the Stylus League. Mike and B pitching the pen, making pictures ascend to the highest ring. The league. Raul running the scheme. Tune into the program and why receive. Yeah, we dropping these seeds. Art over everything. Drive the dream.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Stylus League interview series, part 2. We have the amazing Dope Pope, aka Joe Lucchese, joining us. I can't tell you how excited I am to have Joe on, and you'll get to see why shortly. So what's up? What's up, Bradley and Joe?
What's up, guys? It's good to be here. Really good to be here.
Great to have you, man.
Nice. Can I call you Mr. Dope? Is it okay if I call you Mr. Dope?
He's been calling you dope all week, and I personally have been offended for you. I put some respect on that man's name and use Pope with that.
Yeah, you see the Pope or dope to my face, and I'll respond.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I did it to myself. So.
Thank you for joining the stream.
I realized my name is actually Mike Tartworks after I bought the URL. So people think I'm a baker. It's all good. we live and we learn.
Damn good baker too.
Thanks, man. Great to have you, dude. We're very honored to have you as our latest interview.
Thank you so much, because I'm just as honored to be here. The first thing I said is, I'm not worthy. What am I doing here? So I do appreciate it.
Please.
I think that big ass statue in the back clearly tells us why you're here.
Exactly. So for you all that don't know, we're going to get to this in a minute, but for you all that don't know, I first became aware of Mr. Dope Pope when I saw his amazing King of Monsters work. He has done a lot of awesome sculpts of the Godzilla characters. And that guy behind him is his, and just okay. So that's it. I'm gonna get into it now. I just wanted to preempt that.
Awesome. Well, so I have a question for you, Dope Pope. Where did you land on how did you come about to getting that awesome screen name?
Okay. It's a question I get asked a lot. In the early 2000s, around 2001 or 2, a few friends of mine and myself started a t-shirt company called Dope Pope, and it was just t-shirts and was a brand name at the time. And it was the early internet days, so we were getting online and signing up to basically any cool site where you can post your stuff. And this is before Facebook and before Instagram and all that. So wherever you signed up, you had to have a handle, and I signed up and I chose Dope Pope, and I was, promoting the shirts and such. But after a while, the shirt company kind of didn't work out. But I remained online on these sites with the handle Dope Pope. And over the years, I just started posting my own artwork. And over time, I became Dope Pope. The nickname became me. So now every time I post a personal piece of art, it was just assign that name to it. And, the way branding works, you just, if it's working for you, you don't really get rid of it.
Name broke, don't fix it.
Now, so for at least 23 years, I've been Dope Pope.
Nice.
One of many. There's quite a few out there in the world.
Are you for real?
Yeah, there's a DJ named Dope Pope, and there's someone's got Dope Pope on the Instagram where my handle has zeros for O's, and that was 2013 is when I grabbed that handle. And
yeah, so, I was going to ask, do they have to have numbers after their Dope Pope?
No, there's one real Dope Pope with the actual spelling, and then after that, it's however you could bastardize it. And I chose zeros for O's, and it worked. So I hate putting numbers after stuff because I'll forget the numbers.
That's funny, man. When I was at Echo, there were all these other Echoes. So we had Echo Unlimited, and I remember Mark had to change the spelling because the shoe company came after him. So it went from being what EC. He changed it to ECKO, but it was something else before that. And they were like, "Hey, listen, we can either take this L with the suit, or we could change the name, like make that a K, cross that out, and change it to a
I
K."
remember Echo. Is Echo still around? Is he doing like moved into
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. So they,
top of the world there for a minute?
well, yeah, kinda.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
we
real.
were probably not far from you. You're in Jersey, right?
Now in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay. All
I
right.
was
So
about
yeah,
to ask. I'm from the South, so I'm wondering where that accent is coming from.
Yeah, this is Brooklyn right here.
It's
Born
Brooklyn.
and raised.
nice.
But it's
Yeah,
not
we were
that much
south.
like New Jersey.
Yeah, we were South River, New Jersey, and then moved to. He got big time and moved to Manhattan. So I was like, okay,
Nice. Never
yeah,
got to live there. I got the like short little stays, but I never got to live in Manhattan. And I don't even know if at this point I want to. It's just so ridiculously overpriced. But
very pricey, very pricey. Well, hey, let me ask you this because I know Bradley has a list of official questions for you. I want to know personally, when did you see your first Godzilla movie? And when did you decide that that was what you wanted to dedicate your life to, was the King of Monsters?
these are great questions. I think I saw my first Godzilla movie. I can't remember. That's how young I must have been.
Mhm.
It just feels like I remember like being really young, coming home from elementary school. The 4:30 movie might have been on, or maybe Monster Week on Channel 7 at 4:30, and there'd be a Godzilla movie on after school. And I remember being like 6, 7, 8, doing this ritually. So yeah, I must have just saw one before I could even remember, because I always feel like it's been part of me since I'm a child, since I'm like a toddler, I guess. But yeah, and it turns out I'm born on Godzilla's birthday, so we share a birthday. It's November
Nice.
3rd. So I discovered that very late in life. So that, I think, if you're a numbers guy or a numbers person, that's got to mean something, right? So yeah, but and when did I feel like dedicating my life to it? That's also a strange question, because I didn't never consciously decided to do that, but it seems that I'm definitely doing it, because it's influenced my artwork since I can hold a pencil, and it's just definitely influenced me and inspired me in everything. It made me want to go to Japan, and when I was there, all I wanted to do was like see Godzilla related things, and it made me embrace the culture over there, and I don't like. That's the other side of the planet, for a kid from Brooklyn who never goes anywhere, is
Yeah.
suddenly stomping around Tokyo because Godzilla made me do it. That's kind of, and there's a lot of that going on. The first time I went to the library was to find Godzilla books, So yeah, Godzilla controls me in lots of ways. So it's
Nice.
made me. I think it's made me the artist I am today. So absolutely, I think it was just something the same way it infused in me in my childhood, and it's governed me ever since. So it's the same thing with the first time I saw one. It's before I can remember.
That's dope.
So, do you see monsters when you close your eyes? Because
Yeah.
I think people who create creatures have like the most abstract thoughts about form and things like that. Because I can't watch scary movies, so I'm limited to what I can watch that's on Disney Plus and that's rated G. So, so how do these how did you get your start? Like what led you down your path? So where did it begin?
Well, that's I didn't know when I was a kid growing up. I didn't know that there was such a thing as art schools. I was still like going to elementary school and taking your basic rudimentary classes. So when it was time for me to go to college, I was kind of bummed. I didn't want to go just do another 4 years of academic boring stuff. And then I discovered that there was a high school dedicated to just artwork, and it was in Brooklyn, or it was in Manhattan at some point.
High school,
And,
not a college, like a high
it was
school
a high
that's
school,
dedicated.
yeah. And I was like, I could have
Crazy.
gone to high school for art. Never mind that. But then I discovered that there was colleges that deal with it as well. So I did go to college. I went to FIT in Manhattan and just studied illustration, fashion illustration at the time. It didn't mean I made clothing or anything like that, but we drew from the model. We drew from the model all day long. all day long for every day of the week for 2 straight years, and that really impacted me with foundational skills of just, form and anatomy and the way the drapery falls on the body, and, just important things that you need to know in terms of just foundation and the beginning of what will become your style. Like if you don't get that stuff, then forcing a style later on is just nonsense. But yeah, that's where it started. But while I'm drawing from the model all day, as soon as I get to take a break from that, I'm turning to my sketchbook and I'm drawing a monster that I'm imagining all day that I couldn't wait to draw. I mean, this is every day, all day through college. Whenever I wasn't required to draw a model, I'm drawing monsters on the side of the page. Even in science class or math class, monsters are getting drawn all along the edges. So it never stops. But the more you learn human anatomy, the better your monsters look over time, So you start to really make these things look realistic. And after college, I was drawing some really good monsters.
Nice.
And, I was so happy I went, even though while I was there, I was like, am I going to be a fashion illustrator now that I went to fashion school? But this was the 90s, computers weren't even out yet. I didn't even get to draw digitally. Never mind sculpt, but I'm talking about draw digitally. I didn't do that until I graduated college and was out for a few years.
Yeah.
And so I didn't learn computers in school. I learned drawing pencil and paper. And I don't even do that now.
Yeah, how about it?
I've done that in years. But that's
I was going to ask you about the anatomy thing and how that translates into the monsters. So that's pretty awesome. And do you find that when you're doing something that's just got like some really crazy proportions, like Godzilla, right? Godzilla, he's kind of thick. He's got some junk in the trunk, right? When it comes to doing that, does your mind kind of want to revert back to regular proportions, or do you always think, okay, this is just something that I'm going to, distort wildly to get the shapes of these guys?
Yeah, those things, especially the rubber suits, I'm so influenced by those proportions and how they seem, they're both unnatural and more natural than other things at the same time. I just love the way they were so lumbering and they seem so unstoppable, even though they couldn't turn their heads because it's a rubber suit. And there were so many limitations. My imagination contorted that into, like, I reasoned why all of that was happening, and it all compounded into like how badass these creatures were. So yeah, I think now when I design monsters, I can't shake that man in rubber suit kind of thing. So then I do have to dig deeper into human anatomy and animal anatomy to really make these creatures more believable than a man in a rubber suit. But that's the influx, because back then you knew a Godzilla movie, you knew a Japanese monster movie from anything else because of those rubber suits and how cool they were. But then you see some movies where they would just like literally crazy glue some fins on an alligator and then let it fight another alligator, and then you have animal abuse, the movie. And we were watching for entertainment back then, But that wasn't a Japanese monster movie, I'll tell you that. Sure. So yeah, I mean, you have that, you have the rubber suits. But now with CG, you have the craziest looking things that you've ever seen, and the most realistic looking things that you've ever seen. And even with practical effects over the years, they got better and better. So yeah, human anatomy, definitely. I struggle with it. Sometimes I want to take out the human anatomy and just put in more rubber suit folds.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess I find the balance with that, and that's what makes my style. Like now people look at my stuff and know that I worked on it because of that reason. It's got a little of both, and it hits the sweet spot of both.
Where did you get your start? Like what was your first start in your first paying gig making in art, in the creative field?
Ooh. Well, it probably goes back to high school. I think when I first got my very first airbrush in high school, and it was around the time Roger Rabbit was out in the movie. And this is
Hold
going
on, let me look
1988 or whatever. It was 1988, or something like that. And I remember someone gave me like $40 to airbrush Roger Rabbit on a t-shirt, and I did, and it looked great. So then I got another one I airbrushed like Gumby on someone's denim jacket, and then I airbrushed the Clash album cover on someone's T-shirt. And before I know it, I was the guy who was airbrushing everybody's jackets and T-shirts in high school. And then, you know, Batman came out a couple of years later, so I was doing lots of Jokers and Batmans.
Now, did you also put the rhinestones on the jackets?
No,
Those were the ballers.
no, I didn't do that. But that was, I was probably my very first commissions that I was. I didn't even know that they were commissions. I do now, but yeah,
Right.
you get $30.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't make millions, but technically those were my first paying art jobs, and but not from official companies or anything like that. Just you know, lunch money. Then after that, and that was before college. My artistic abilities weren't even as good. I mean, after college, they were way better. But then by then, I ditched the airbrush because I just wasn't using that anymore. And then probably in a few years of college, I got into computers. So and the rest.
So when you got out of college and you decided, so what's the thought process then before you get your actual first job that's in doing a Godzilla creature, right? Like, how'd you make that transition from I'm out of school, I'm airbrushing jackets and shirts and jeans, and now I'm going from being somebody who gets, you know, paid as a hobby to getting into your first professional gig? What did that look like?
Okay, so after college, what I'm doing is lots of retail jobs. I started folding jeans at Levi's, you know, and other company. I worked at Diesel, I worked at Aeropostale, I worked at wherever, you name it. So I'm at these places, and I'm often doodling when I'm supposed to be working. People notice, and they like what they see. I've gotten jobs just by doing that on the clock. So, but because you're in retail, someone in retail is going to notice that you're good, and they're like, "Wow, we could use you on the next hang tag for this product." Or we're making a line of T-shirts for girls. Can you make this character? Like, and we'll put it all over. We'll put it all over the clothing, and that's how I got a lot of freelance gigs after college. And this is still like around the time I'm still drawing on paper. I'm doing this by hand. I'm cutting things out, and it's just like very, for me, it's like old school. It's very traditional, but it's very like mishmash. But it looks good. They take it and they put it on the shirt, and it sells. So I start developing a tiny little career doing that. It's paying, like I said, for lunch and stuff like that. But then I get the computer so I can speed things up and make things look a little bit more professional. And then I don't want to do retail anymore. I don't want to work. I don't want to fold jeans. So I just quit. I quit, and now I don't know what to do with myself. So I take the first job I can, and that was at like a company where you officially sit there all day on the computer, and you doing Scooby-Doo, Tasmanian Devil, WWE T-shirts.
Okay.
It's licensed stuff. Someone's got to do it. You know, these T-shirts are everywhere. You know, and someone's making.
It was a print company.
Yeah, it was like a licensed print company, and they would just like churn out product.
Yeah. And
I would just sit there and literally do like 4 Scooby-Doos a day. I mean, so many. I'll be honest,
it's so crazy how
good at Photoshop. I got good at Photoshop and Illustrator on that job, just doing that kind of stuff all day, bored out of my mind. Like after you learn it, then it becomes repetitive, and then that's when you're really getting good. You're learning interface, second nature, everything. But then you get bored. There's no more challenge. I'm like, oh my god, I can't do another Tasmanian Devil. But
that's so crazy, man. Like we have a very similar start. Like the retail to getting into working for print companies. I did that for a while. We were doing concert shirts, right? So I was working on, you know, the Stones and AC/DC and all those guys. But same deal. Like you do the same stuff every day, and then you get tired of it, and you're like, I gotta do something else, man. Yeah. So how did you transition from working in the shirt industry and working on licensed characters to Godzilla? Like, dude, I gotta know, because like you're teasing the thing. I gotta find out exactly how do you go and jump from that to being known as the Godzilla guy. Like, how's that happen?
Well, that doesn't happen for a while because that doesn't happen until I'm the Godzilla guy. in my heart and soul up until that point. But I'm not getting professional gigs doing anything monster related at all.
Okay.
But what I am doing is as soon as I learned ZBrush in 2013,
Mhm.
I'm sculpting. It kind of rejuvenated me as an artist because right before I did that, I was in like a 3 or 4 year rut with my art where I was just like, I don't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
I stopped drawing, I stopped sketching. I was probably, as the artist in me was dormant and depressed and wasn't happy.
Yeah.
But I started seeing online, because I never stopped looking online for inspiration. I started seeing online all these images of awesome stuff that I hadn't seen before. And it was 3D sculpture coming from ZBrush Central. And I was like, what is this? I gotta learn this. And I'm watching this for 4 years before I even jump in.
Right.
Yep.
In 2013, I go in there and I'm finally involved in ZBrush. I got the interface down remarkably, and I start just to practice and stay motivated. I started doing what I love, and I started doing Godzilla monsters.
Mhm.
Every day I would come out with another Godzilla monster and post it.
Did you mess with
Fun.
any 3D packages before ZBrush?
No,
Like,
I
did
didn't
you
know. I
like
didn't know a damn thing before. I've never done ZBrush.
like
I never did 3D in my life, and ZBrush was the first. And that's why I think I took to it so easily, because I had no frame of reference. Everyone
Yep.
says how crazy the interface is to me, but the interface is just the interface to me.
Right.
I have
Right.
no
like you learned Klingon while everyone else was learning English.
right. But now I
not
jump
everybody wants not everybody wants to speak Klingon.
exactly. It's very similar to that. But if Klingon is the only language that you're
Yep.
offered, you're like, yeah, all right, I'll learn it. So now I jump on anything else, and everyone says, yeah, this is a piece of cake, but I find it very hard to learn after ZBrush. But ZBrush does definitely confuse the shit out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Myself included.
How long did it? So how long did it take you? Because you always suck until you don't suck. How long did it take you from learning ZBrush to getting a handle on ZBrush to doing your first guys that were like, okay, to like now doing? I mean, not now, but you know what I mean. When you saw your first one, you were like, yo, this is kind of awesome.
Well, here's the thing. I actually tried to learn ZBrush in 2009. That's the first time I took a class. Took a class with Dave Cortez, one of the best ZBrushers around. His work is phenomenal. He does a lot of toy work with Todd McFarlane toys and all that stuff. He's got skills. Anyway, it did not take at all. I tried my hardest, but it was think of ZBrush in 2009, what it had to offer. I don't even know if it had half the features it does now. But one feature it didn't have was Dynamesh, and Dynamesh didn't come out until 2013. So for that gap, I tried ZBrush and I failed, and I stopped ZBrushing. Didn't ZBrush for all that time, and then I don't know what happened. I went into that depression, that rut, and then I snapped out of it. I said, I'm going to give it another try. And then I go to school, and they're like, oh, well, now we have Dynamesh. So in Dynamesh, for some reason, whatever it solved the problem that made me hate ZBrush in the first place immediately, and made my ability to just have a monster in a half hour that much easier. And I was it just became like serendipity, like boom, it was immediate after 4 years of it not being immediate. It was like boom, it was amazing. So after that, I was so excited to keep going, and that's why I wanted to do another monster every day. And I did. I must have posted so many things so fast that people were like, "Who's this guy? And why is he churning out so much shit?" Posting it on that's when I got on Instagram too, because I was like, "All right, well, I'm doing my best work in my life." Like I felt super rejuvenated because I couldn't draw as well as I can sculpt, or as well as ZBrush could get the image to look. I could never draw that well. So now I was always meant to be a sculptor and not an illustrator. I just didn't know that for my entire life up until that point. And then I took to it because I wasn't a clay guy. I wasn't sculpting at all. I did it twice in college, and that was it. So
you now know how to use ZBrush. This is 2013. Dynamesh comes out, changes the game. Now you have that breakthrough, and you are building a giant portfolio. So ArtStation wasn't around. You mentioned Instagram. So were you posting stuff in 2013 on Instagram?
Yeah, I jumped on Instagram when I was 2015 when I got on
Okay.
Instagram.
Wow.
It was a little
Okay.
bit of there was a little bit of a gap there because
Uh-huh.
when I was first doing it, I didn't, I was doing it for myself and I
Yeah.
didn't think anybody would care. I was
Okay.
already on DeviantArt, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did
That's what I was gonna ask you, actually.
yeah, you put it on DeviantArt because that's what you did with your art
Sure.
when back then. There was
Sure,
nowhere
sure.
else to go. And I
Mhm.
wasn't there was also called CG Society, and that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a thing back
Yep.
then. But
Yeah.
I was so intimidated by that site, there was no way in hell I was gonna post anything there.
Okay.
And then something happened with that site, and then ArtStation kind of took over.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, let me jump on ArtStation while like I could just blend in with the crowd that was all jumping ship from one to the other. And I did, and I just kind of like felt more confident at ArtStation. But I was building up as at the same time as everybody else was. So now I love it there. I just we can't
Sure.
really get into the AI crap that shit threw
Yeah.
on ArtStation, but I'm talking about the early years when it first came out. That place was and still is for me. It's
Yeah,
invaluable.
it's
to
still a
get
great
Yeah,
place.
definitely.
and and it showcase your work. It's
So your portfolio's built, you're on the pertinent sites at the time. Who is the first company that notices you, and how did they get a hold of you? Where was your social media game up at that time? Did you have your
yeah
Were you
yeah.
easily accessible?
My first pro gig was a toy gig for a pro company. It
Okay.
might have been a Pop Culture Shock. That might have been my first high profile gig. I sculpted a Cthulhu for them back, I forget, 2017 or something like that.
Okay.
Were you freelancing or did you work
I was
directly, or did they hire you on?
I think they just found me on Instagram and
Mhm.
was like they liked what I was doing and reached out. And
Yeah.
I think I may have gotten a couple of way smaller gigs before that
Mhm.
that like actually never even got produced, but technically they were official jobs. But I don't remember ever seeing the finished product on those, so I don't count them. And they weren't nearly as high profile as Pop Culture Show. Like
Okay.
they had a bigger presence that I was aware of than these other guys were. But at the time of getting these gigs, I was thrilled
Mhm.
because at first I started doing $25 commissions, just sculpting
Sure.
whoever hit me up, and
Sure.
now I'm getting thousands of dollars sculpting stuff that's going to be produced as toys, and I was just head over heels about that. But yeah, a lot of these, like if I had no social media presence, I wouldn't have got any work. So absolutely, that was paramount to getting where I was. And
And
I
then
guess
you got into freelance, so you were freelance with Pop
yeah.
Culture Shock, and obviously they loved your stuff, and so you work with them for how long approximately before you?
No, I only did the one piece with them.
Really?
Yeah, I did the one piece with them, but it was like, I'm taking commissions while I'm doing this from people. I'm working with professional companies and just doing side gigs. And up until 2010, I had a full-time gig being a photo retoucher. But
Okay.
then at 2010, I got let go and I was just jumped into freelance. No, it's 2010. I learned ZBrush in 2013. So in those
Mhm.
3 years, I didn't know what I was doing with my life, and I was just
Sure.
getting by doing photo retouching for private clients. But
Okay.
then in like some graphic design and whatnot. But then
Mhm.
in 2013, I start churning out artwork done in ZBrush. That's when I start a career in ZBrush, little by little. First by doing $25 commissions,
Mhm.
then by doing small jobs for small companies, then getting noticed by Pop Culture Shock. After that, a big shout to James Groman. He's one of the big wigs in the toy industry. He liked what he saw, asked me to help him out with some digital sculpts, and from there, I mean, just jobs started coming in.
So you've
What?
always been on the concept side of like either for art, like the like designing the concept for things that are going to production, or did you do any games, any
Yeah,
VFX at the time?
a little of everything, over the years. I don't have any like strong hold in one place. I've never been
Mhm.
on an in-house guy for anyone. It's
Okay.
it's just a lot of like whatever comes my way, I'll take it. Like over the years, I had worked with uh, somebody who does physical prosthetic makeup effects for movies and TV shows. And every time he needs a little concept work done really fast, he hits me up. So in these like they turn out to be episodes of American Horror Story and Evil, and movies like Good Night Mommy, and just like crazy monster movies that just come and go. And
Nice.
yeah, and again, I have like a day and a half to get stuff done. So I just, these are jobs I love to do, and I'm happy to get them when they come. But I can't rely on that every day. But in between those jobs, I'm doing commissions for other, private commissions for people. I'm doing stuff for fun. Then I'll get the big jobs that come that last months for toys. My first true Hollywood gig was Legendary for Monsterverse, and that was because I was live at a convention, and I got noticed on the spot by Michael Dougherty, the director of Godzilla 2, and he just came over to the table and was looking at my work. So like that just speaks to the power of being, putting
Godzilla 2. That's not Godzilla 2000, right?
No, not Godzilla 2000. No.
It's because like I gotta look up which Godzilla that is. Like, is that the Godzilla when it has the design of the one that's behind you?
That's with Cranston, right? Brian Cranston, or
that's Godzilla 2014. This is Godzilla 2019. The King of the Monsters has the, I don't know if you guys know, but the three-headed dragon Ghidorah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one with 13, Bradley.
That's a good
or
one.
11. Sorry, 11. I jumped up a couple numbers. Yeah. Hey, what's her name? Billy Brown, Bobby.
Millie
you know
Bobby.
the one. You know that girl,
Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah,
Billy Brown?
Stranger Things. I just say Stranger Things.
11.
So,
is that the number you threw up? I get it now.
What was your role with Godzilla?
There's lots of monsters in the Monsterverse, and some that haven't been shown yet. I worked on some that haven't been shown yet. So that's all I can say about it. There's one, I designed a few, and only one is yet to been revealed, and it was only in a comic book so far. I'm hoping, because there's more movies coming, and there's a TV
comic book.
It was a Godzilla Dominion comic, I think it was called.
Okay.
But I designed a monster called Tiamat, which is a giant sea serpent, and it almost kills Godzilla even.
So, spoiler.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's in the comic, and that is so far if that makes it to a movie, then I will be thrilled.
Nice.
And like I said, and there was some others that have yet to be shown, and I'm not at liberty to discuss or showcase any of that. But
Bradley,
yeah,
let me.
It's still a dream job for me, though. To be honest, that's bucket list.
That's dope. So I know Bradley has the official questions. I'm just peppering in stuff that I want to know about personally.
Sure.
But so of the Godzilla designs, what is your favorite design? So I'm gonna say the rubber suit Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, the more recent one that you've worked on. Of those three, give them to me in order. Which ones are your favorites?
Okay, I do love the most recent. I like the Legendary Godzilla. I think that thing is absolutely gorgeous. So that's my first. It's my first, but it's relatively new in the timeline for me. So I've always been in love with the rubber suit, and that might have the most secure place in my heart is the rubber suit.
Yeah.
Now, there's a million different kinds of rubber suits, so this conversation go on for hours, and let's not do that. But yeah, the rubber suit second, and then that Matthew Broderick thing is a very distant third, because while I love the design of the monster, it's just not Godzilla to me.
Yeah.
But I respect it, and I do think it's beautiful. It's just not Godzilla to me.
Okay.
It has no rubber suit qualities.
Yeah.
I love the rubber suit stuff. So, but I think the Legendary Godzilla does have rubber suit qualities. It has those proportions. It just moves anatomically correct, and
it's beautiful,
beautifully done, and
and
it's respectful of Godzilla and is Godzilla to me.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. That's what that is. So,
you know what that is to me? It's like when you play Resident Evil 4 on the PlayStation 4, and then you see the new version that's about to drop, and you're like, "Ooh, it still is respectful of that first one."
Did you play the demo?
That, huh?
I was playing the demo all day yesterday.
Oh man, yeah. I'm waiting. I'm trying to get Bradley to play, but he's scared of scary things. So
I don't know if you can make it through that. That's
no, I can't. You don't have to wonder. No, there's no wondering.
There's no
You don't, you
wonder.
don't, you don't have to think about it. I'm not doing that. So you've worked. So you worked with our came on to help with Legendary for Godzilla. Were there any other companies that you've like have joined or worked on, and what types of things have you produced that you can talk about with them?
Yes. I guess I'm just gonna say it. I did work on Marvel's Ant-Man 3. What I did work on was not in the movie, so I don't know if I'll ever get to show it.
So you didn't have to go into detail. All you had to say is you worked on Ant-Man and just let it go. Just
There you go.
let it go.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and to be honest, that was a random cold call as well. Like just having a social media presence is what got me that gig, and thankfully,
Tell me how that conversation goes. You're sitting at home one day. I know you can't like do specifics, but sitting at home one day, you're sketching monsters. You get a call. Hey, would you like to work on the new Marvel Ant-Man movie? Right?
Well,
No?
they wouldn't mention that it's an Ant-Man movie. They'll just
They wouldn't say the name. Yeah. Do you want to work on a movie for
Yeah,
Marvel?
and let me tell you, it's an email that I find in my spam folder.
Oh,
mind you.
wow.
So those can be real.
Yeah. Because I trained myself to at least double check what I'm trashing before I trash it, just in case. And in this instance, I had a double took, and I'm like, what is this? Is this another joke? Because you get a lot of crap. But yeah, this one slipped through the cracks into the spam folder. I found it and I responded to it. Not sure even if it was spam or not, and it wasn't, and that's what that turned into. But they won't tell you what it is. You have to sign NDAs immediately before they tell you what anything is. So,
did you get the reference that had your name all over it 1 billion times, like and watermarks? Was that that's how they did me? Did you get that too?
Probably. I don't remember. I don't remember that. But
so if it ever leaks, they know exactly who did it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm scared senseless of like pissing these people off for sure.
Oh, yeah. So you got that call
for our audience, Mike. I just had to make sure that everyone knows that it wasn't a Telegram message. It was it was an email.
Regular email.
You know that spam Telegram. It wasn't Telegram. That he didn't.
I get a lot of those. I get a lot of job companies, and then it's like you contact us on Telegram, and they're all scams.
They're all scams.
Yeah,
so evil.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Don't do that.
Cool. That's great, man. So all right. So then you worked on that. Was that one of the more recent? Obviously, because I mean, I know that they have a long release window, but was that one of the most recent jobs you've worked on?
For film concept work?
Yeah.
After that was probably a couple of TV show episodes.
Okay.
But that was the last movie I worked on.
Okay.
And in between that, while I'm working on that, the very same time I'm working on toy gigs, and that are just as time sensitive and as pressing as. So it becomes like either you have too much time on your hands or you have absolutely no time on your hands.
Yeah.
So that was a very intense period for me. I was working, literally juggling the two biggest jobs of my career. And then my mom died in the middle of it. And I was
man.
Sorry to hear that, man.
It was rough. Yeah, thank you guys. But yeah, it was a weird thing because I was on such a high in my career. I was so proud and thrilled and exhilarated in one aspect, and then totally just bottomed out and basically everywhere else because of what's going on. So it was very strange time period for me. But I got through it, and thankfully so. And I love the experience regardless of the work, it's very similar in ways to working with Legendary, but also very different. And I only have those two huge companies so far. I would love more concept artwork for Hollywood films, and I hope I get more. But so far so good. I mean, those are two great companies to work with, and the biggest names you could probably work for. But I'm ready to keep going, and I hope it's not the last of that.
You say you're process for working with toy companies and working in film is about the same? Like, when you're tackling a project, like when you're for film, is it like super high concept, like you're making sure the silhouettes reading right, and like, is it, what's the sign off process is like when you're doing that, like, because for toys, like I'm sure they're giving you like a 2D drawing, and you're like, you have to replicate this thing. But when you're working with in the film industry and you're doing the concept side of it, like what's your process? Like how are you thinking about that? And what's your timetable between the two? Like, just balancing, like what's the difference between the two from your experience?
Yeah, the concept work for films, it seems to be way more frantic and just keep going. It's the hardest thing in that is like coming up with ideas. Literally the thought process of like, what am I going to do next? Because they want so much so fast.
Yeah.
And you like, you have your bag of tricks, and then you hit the bottom of the bag and they want 10 more by tomorrow. And you're like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I come up with? So you're challenged in that way. And when you're doing toys, you're not really that challenged. You're not as challenged. Mostly you already have your concept, and then the challenge is to make that beautiful and make it functional as a piece. And whether it's got articulation, you got to make sure that works. And that's a set of challenges in itself. But the idea, the concept is already done. Like, that's the hard part. But when you're working on concepts for film, and they want 20 ideas for monsters or 50 ideas for monsters, and they all have to be drastically different from each other.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, when does that? How is that even humanly possible? One, and then how do you do that, like, logistically, and get it presentable, and then in their hands by the deadline. So all of these challenges are like hitting you over the head.
So I'm thinking, how did you do that? Like
I don't even know how I did, to be honest. I was working 18-hour days for like 3 straight weeks, I remember. And I remember I watched 1 season a day of Game of Thrones. That's 10 hours.
Wow. Crazy. That's crazy.
Wow.
I was like, working but listening to Game of Thrones, and I watched 1 season a day and probably then some. And that was how I basically, remember how long things took.
So were you doing 2D like illustrations, or were you doing like ZBrush sketches, or like maquette type stuff? What were you doing for the concept side?
Yeah, when you're concepting, it was very fast and loose, which is great, because that's how I, coming from a fashion illustration background, that's how I draw. I draw fast and loose, and halfway through a drawing, I'm ready to get started on the next pose, because my mind can't stay in one spot for that long. So I do appreciate the quickness of what they want, because I can sculpt a messy sculpt really fast and get it to become a concept. Then it's within the finessing of it that's when it starts to become real time consuming. So yeah, in the beginning they want that stuff fast and loose, and that, lucky for me, that's the way I prefer to work. Then when they want more and more details, that's when it starts to get into all right, now the interface of the machine becomes your enemy. Yeah. If things don't work fast enough, now it's cutting into your time to get this done. And it's literally a matter of like, how can I do what I want to do in as little amount of time as possible so I can get it to them? Because if the detail they require isn't on the page, you're useless to them. They don't care how long it takes, but they just need to see that idea. And they'll literally look at it for 1 second, know if it's good or not, and then throw it in the garbage. And it took you 18 hours to do, or 2 weeks to do. And that's it's crazy.
What advice would you give someone that will, like, all of us as character artists is either through 2D or 3D, we have to prepare ourselves to be able to meet that type of client and handle that type of client. So what advice would you give someone, either from understanding of design or process or steps, or back away and breathe? Like, what would you say? Some advice you would give someone that's looking to go into concepting to help them be successful, or at the very least be able to compose themselves for the storm?
Yeah, my advice is always the same for beginners, or even for people like well into it. Just never stop practicing, because the constant grind of just doing stuff that's what it solves so many problems at the same time. It's like you're really becoming you need that interface to be second nature, and you only get that by practice. It's like just go to the gym for keyboard shortcuts, and like you got to be able, because all of those add time to what you're working on. If something takes 2 minutes to do or something takes 2 seconds to do, that's going to matter a lot in the end when they want something overnight,
Right.
and that's not stuff that you can't really like, you can't really plan for that until you're well into it. And then you understand, like, all right, if I do this just a little bit better, or if I learn how to do this a little bit faster, that's all interface stuff. Then it's a matter of how you're going to come up with that idea. There's nothing in the interface that is a make concept button, or make the idea appear on the page. So that comes with, you have to keep yourself constantly inspired and motivated, and you have to have great reference. That can't be understated. You have to have reference for all this stuff that's really going to help sell your ideas, because you could concept all day, but if you don't have those little details in there. See, I remember one client was asking me I said, can I be fast and loose? And they said yes, but they don't mean that. They'll say
Right.
yes, but they don't mean it. So when I showed them fast and loose, they're like, what's this? So I was like, oh shit, I got to amp this up. I have to give them a finish. They want to finish when they say fast and loose. So that means you have to go from beginning to end, and then throw that in the garbage, and then do that again every time they want to see something new. To me, I thought fast and loose was like a quick black and white scribble. And for some people it could be, but for the most part, it's not going to be. And you have to show them like almost a near finish. Now, it doesn't have to be production ready, obviously, but it does have to have that finish sheen on it, like a beautiful illustration should.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is more illustration work than you would think, and it's less 3D production and more final illustration concept. Even though it's all 3D for me, it's all 3D work. It's just got to look like that 2D illustration at the end of it.
Yeah. So for the kids who are thinking about being concept artists, what Mr. Pope has just explained to you is that the cake is in fact a lie. When they tell you they want it fast and loose, that is not the case. And so just to piggyback off what you were saying, I think what's important for people to know when it comes to this field, and the fact that you've been able to be a freelancer, a concept artist, and work basically for yourself for so many years, that's a skill in itself, right? Like, so you have to be able to, communicate well with the client. B, you have to be very patient, because, what's going to happen is they're going to say they want one thing. You're going to give it to them exactly the way that they want it. Somebody from another room is going to come in and say, oh, well, but it's supposed to look like this. And then you have to like change on the fly and kind of deal with that in a way that's going to be professional and make them want to come back to you. So the art side of it is really like, that's one side it's important, obviously, right? Like, I'm not taking anything away from Joe. He's awesome at what he does. But he also is a good business person and knows how to not only give the client what they want, but make it so that they want to come back to him, whether it be for how fast he turns it or the way that he can pivot and come up with new ideas the way he was describing earlier. I just wanted to throw that out because I think that people neglect that. They're like, oh, well, I want to work for myself. There's a lot that goes into that. It's not just being a great artist. There's a lot of really good artists that aren't good business people. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely worth mentioning. It's like, I feel like the whole social media aspect of this can sometimes be more time consuming than anything, and it's invaluable. You need it, but it is exhausting, especially when there's so much politics built into it and mixed in where it doesn't need to be, and you have to navigate all those things. It's very important.
All right. So in this segment, we'll start to talk about the art. And there was one piece of art that I picked out that I thought really when you're talking about concepting and like how you go about, I was looking at this and this like when I was looking at this wall of design, like I'm looking at where you're like I personally can't do this. I can't even begin to like do something like this. And there's so many different iterations of design. So is this like when you made this, you're like, oh, I have all these files on my drive. Let me put them on here and show.
Yeah.
Or is this like a session or a couple sessions just doing design?
No,
What
no,
went into
no.
this one?
These are 10 years worth of sculpts. So when I realized I was creeping up on 10 years, I started counting my files and I was like, wow, I have like a lot of files. So I thought it would be cool to just make them all grayscale and put them like on a grid form. And before I knew it, I had 5 pages worth, and there's still like 300 I haven't put there. So that's what I'm saying. When I did a monster a day, I did a monster a day in the beginning. So that's why there's so many. So yeah, I just found it interesting to do, and and then as a visual, it's impressive. Like, oh wow, he's done tons. Like each one of those is like 30 hours of work.
Wow.
So
Like
give or take.
Like check out this this dragon. Like
No, that's the one that's I was like, wow.
That's the one I did for Legendary. That's Tiamat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
You know, some of these are like some of these are professional gigs. Others are stuff I did for fun. Others are private commissions, and others are toys that have come out. So like, it's just if I worked on it in the past 10 years, I threw it on this grid.
Do you ever print any of your own stuff?
Yeah, well, I don't 3D print myself. I outsource it, but I've been this 2022 was the year of 3D prints for me. All I did at every show, I sold like 10 or 20, and I had a bunch of them, and I sell them online now through DMs. You know, like one here, one there. But the more the word gets out, the more orders I'm getting. So it's starting to build up, and I'm starting to. At some point, I'm going to need an online store or something.
So I'm curious, what does the reference board look like when making like this design, for example? Like what are you gathering to like create this design? Like I see a snake, I see a cobra, I see like when I'm looking at this is like kind of could be like something like a spider leg, like what how are you getting this stuff into like one design? Like I always find that people who create creatures, like what are you looking for to help enhance or build a piece and stuff like that? Like what does the reference board look like?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, this particular piece is already it's one of the monsters from Godzilla versus Kong, and the reference was actual pictures of that. So I was just copying what I saw. But if this was an original design, I would absolutely have. If I had something in mind, I would look for actual pictures of the animal kingdom for sure. Trying to find textures and colors, forms, anything that relates to my concept. And then also I do look up what other pieces, other artists have done that it might be similar, just to see how they handled certain areas and to see what I should aim for, and also what should I avoid, depending upon whatever my concept is initially. You know, some people steer clear of other people's art. I'm not that person. I'm inspired by it, so I dive right into that stuff and do have that as reference as well. And then just basically just go at it. Just mix those two together, and then a lot of serendipity, and see what comes out of that.
Nice.
So how long would it take you to do like a piece like this, which has every even though like there's a lot in the piece, it still reads well. What's your time like are you when you're creating something like this, are you using Z spheres? Are you starting from sphere and just like pulling stuff out and doing Dynamesh? What's your process?
I have never used these spheres. I've never taken to them. They never seem to do. They never worked for me. That's why I said Dynamesh was that for me. So everything starts with sphere. I start everything with a sphere, and then Dynamesh it, pull it, cut it, chop it, beat it, and then immediately like start splitting it into other sub tools so that I could have more control over stuff. But yeah, I mean, I found that it was a lot of work. Z spheres, I'm not putting them down. Whoever uses them probably uses them well. I just couldn't. It seemed like so much to learn and do before you can wind up where you are with the sphere and Dynamesh anyway. So I just went there, and then that just became a workflow. And if you watch me do it, you'll be like, "There's no way anything good is going to come of this." And even for like an hour or two, it looks like hot garbage. Yeah. And then you get to that where it starts to take form. And but at least with Z spheres, like it looks crazy. I always found like I liked the way the Z sphere looked, and as soon as you made it to a mesh, it looked terrible, and I never get past that. I want it to look like the Z sphere stuff. So,
what's a typical one of these models? What's the topology looking like? Like how many polygons are you in an average?
That's funny because over the years, in my first ZBrush and my computer, I couldn't go higher than like say, I don't know, 16 million polys in one subtool. Then my computer would get laggy, and then I got a new computer, and then I was able to go to like 50, and it was like a big deal. And that was amazing. It was like a night and day change. But then I got another computer after that, and now I can go to like 150 without any issue per
infinite, all of the polygons.
Well, I'm like, then I'll go as high as I can at this point. Like, I know that's probably not the smartest thing to do, but if I need that resolution, I'm putting it on.
Have you ever used HD geometry? Because I don't know very many people who have.
I think that's when you're doing, well, I mean, it's probably good for just about anything.
Yeah.
That requires it, but people tend to do it when they're doing those photorealistic busts. I see them use it for pores on giant heads. Sure. And it's impressive. But honestly, I've never needed something. I never needed that in anything I ever worked on. I think that would be overkill for something I'm working on.
Okay. I didn't know some of these like the scales and stuff where it gets like super intricate. Maybe you might need that level of detail, but like that Godzilla right there looks like there's a lot going on in the tail even.
And at a certain point, this is subdivided, right? So eventually you move out of the Dynamesh phase, and then you move and you switch over to Subdivision. Do you do retopology, Z remesher? Do you retopple things, or is it Z remesher and making sure you have like the nice silhouette and build from there?
It's a Z remesher only. I don't have the patience to do retopo. I just don't have it.
I'm with you.
I know. I could probably do it, but I just, that's a whole day. I mean, I'm sure there's people who could do it really fast because they're good at it. That's a testament to practice. So just, but that's not something that ever interested me. So Dynamesh seems to do just as good or good enough for me, for my needs. If I ever got to that position where and that was the only way to get the job done was to do it, then I'll do it. But I've never gotten.
So does that mean that you're doing mostly poly painting, or do you ever use something like Substance Painter?
No, I actually never used Substance Painter. I would love to learn it. I want to get to that level of what that can do. I think that would really take me to another level.
Same.
So that is something that I will be learning how to do at some point.
Yeah.
But no, I have not done that yet. Most of my stuff is poly paint, and then whatever I can manage with like thrown on textures and keyshot and such materials, whatever materials work.
That's funny. We got a lot in common, man.
Yeah,
What's next, Bradley?
Definitely admired your workflow because I was shocked to see how similar it was.
So I like this one because like this one, it shows the range, but you did something a little different from the character side. Like I love this Thanos.
Thank you. Yeah.
So was this a look? I see some real light. Was this rendered in Keyshot?
Yeah, these are Keyshot renders. I mean, if you go through my portfolio, you'll see a lot of the same models re-rendered, and they look completely different. And that's because, I'm learning new things as I go. And like when you learn something really powerful, you go back to old models and you re-render them, and you make them look like brand new coat of paint, and it's literally like a whole new image. Yeah. So this is when I discovered how Keyshot worked, and I started throwing the old old models into it and getting new looks and new effects.
Was this before the movie, or like?
This was probably around the time that it was coming out. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's like date posted there or whatever, but yeah, this is when Thanos was like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
there it is.
My other favorite.
Yeah.
Like, so this was one of the ones that you're saying that they like this. Was this for the movie? Was this one for a movie or for like a statue or something?
No, this was concept. This is just concept at the time. They didn't know if it was going to be used for anything. So far, it's only been in a comic book. That is Tiamat, Titanus Tiamat.
Mm-hmm.
If this winds up in a movie or a TV show, that would be amazing. And they were like in the comic book, they actually made changes to it, so it doesn't even really look like this anymore. But this is where it became a thing. Like I concepted the first round that got approved. So yeah, so these are just basically like this is fast and loose for concept. You know, that's not production ready model, but there's so much involved in that model that I mean, I would probably spend one entire 18-hour day just building this thing so that everything is there. So that when I turn it in space, I can get different angles that look beautiful with all the detail I need. So one day is spent just building it, the next day is spent just rendering it.
Right.
And maybe the third day is doing like presentation, like making it, putting backgrounds in, because I'm not doing backgrounds in Zbrush or in Keyshot. That's all photoshopped in after the fact. And then just adding the presentation stuff and doing that's 3 days. That's 3 days worth of work right there. It was like 30 minutes.
It looks like it's in different poses. Did you rig this or have somebody rig it?
No, but I did. It's like probably T-pose mesh and just beat it. Break. It's very damaging, but I mean, when you're doing concept, you can't care about stuff like that. You save a copy and then destroy it for whatever you need, and that's why you concept 3D is way different than production 3D because you can't break anything with production. It's got to function. Here, it just has to sell the idea.
Now, from the time you blocked this out to the time you got all these nice details that Bradley is showing off here, how long do you think it took you from going from that base mesh that you built to, the even pre-poly paint, like even just the sculpted details?
Oh, there's hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he's literally starting at like 8 a.m. and finishing at 2, 3 in the morning. But
like in a day, or are we talking about several days?
No. For this, it was one day. I definitely did it in one day because I had to do other things. It was one of many I was working on. So I had to do other things the next day. Like I said, I only had 3 days per monster because I had to deliver at a deadline, and they had to look this good, and they had to look this finished, and it was a challenge that I had never
no doubt.
Or I could have made this look just as good or a little bit better in a week, but I had it one day.
You had to push yourself.
That's why you have to now you're like, all right, every keyboard every keyboard shortcut matters. Every second counts. And
how do you do something like get the scales to be so evenly distributed? Because I've tried to do scales on a snake. It was a nightmare, bro.
Yeah.
Like I was not able to do it at all.
There's lots of different ways. There's brushes that you could create. So there's just like a little segment that gets repeated over and over and over, but it also tapers at the end. So I may have used a curve brush on this one. I probably made it myself, or I could have. It was years ago. I don't exactly remember. But there's lots. Like I definitely made those fins that are on it. That's a curve brush also. Yeah. Then you have then in areas where it doesn't actually work, I'll go in with alphas. I know I made VDM brushes for these. Absolutely, those are beautiful things. VDM brushes, they were like lifesaver.
Yeah. The sheer fact that you did this you created this character in a day is nuts.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't think that's healthy. For those who's listening, I don't think that's healthy. But
hey, you do what you got to do. I love this one right here, man. This is beautiful.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But so I get what Bradley, scroll up for a second or down. I'm sorry, go back up again to the one that's not quite, it's not as finished. Okay, so for this one here, just the body part where you have the small scales, they just look perfect all the way through it. And we talked about this with Raphael when he was working on the Black Panther stuff, but it
Right.
blows my mind being able to repeat stuff and have it. I know you can tile things, right? But when you start bending things and stuff like that, it's hard to make those surfaces match up perfectly. And this just looks very precise to me. So without UVs, kudos on that, man.
Thank you. But you're only seeing one side. Probably the other side might be a hot mess.
Okay.
That's
fair.
That's what's the fact of the matter when you're doing really fast concept work.
Sure.
But then again, I know that I need this model to look good from all angles, so it might actually look good on the other side. And you'll see when you look at other angles of the shot, because I didn't sculpt a different thing for different shots for the most part. I tried to have it look good. Like there's an early example where I didn't put any scales on it because I wasn't there yet, but I still wanted to see what a render would look like. So I banged one out, and it's more of just a mood piece. Imagine the scales are there, but this thing making that silhouette, making an impact. And that's what you like. If you're feeling a thing while you're concepting, then go ahead and render it out, and you could just add it to your presentation. And it's just there to help them visualize what you are visualizing.
These backgrounds are all Photoshop composites, or were you remember that software back in the day? What was it, Bryce?
Bryce, I totally remember Bryce.
Yeah. I was looking at this and I was like, oh god, that reminds me of Bryce.
Bryce did great stuff. I don't think I ever got the hang of it.
Yeah, me neither.
It did nice work, and that's what you get. But yeah, a lot of this is just like photo bash backgrounds or just straight up fog.
Cool.
What'd you use to get the glow on this? Like is this painted in Photoshop, or is this effects that you used in Keyshot?
It's a combination. I probably made render passes knowing that they would look like bioillumination. So I probably this is how I work. I render out lots of passes with materials that are doing crazy things, and then I just composite them and see what works on different modes, and then do a lot of spraying with masking, and then Photoshop on top, and then you just get what you get when you're done.
You know what's cool? I just noticed it. It looks like there's like a little electrical spikes that are flying on those the pedally parts. It looks like there's little shocks. You see it, Bradley, that are going across the
here.
Yeah, in the lower, look in the lower left-hand corner, right below the antenna part. Up, not on the type, a little higher, a little higher on the left. Nope, on the.
This is the left.
Yeah, go a little further left, a little further now, down a little bit, and you see that little electrical. It looks like a shock of electricity.
Oh, yeah.
That's
kind of cool.
That's probably a Keyshot material that I use specifically for that reason.
That's dope. Nice, man. Are you allowed to have like a reel with any of the stuff that you've done, or is most of the stuff like, I know some of it, we have another friend named Odell who's never allowed to show any of his stuff from movies or television shows.
Right.
Yeah, is it like that?
I've never made I don't have anything that moves. I have no real motion, so I never made a reel. Anything I almost never have to send out anything to get jobs. They usually just come to me. I'm not sounding like I'm like a brag or anything. It's just that's just the way it's happened for me so far. But on the off chance that I did try to get the job myself, I sent them a PDF of artwork. So it was stills.
Mm-hmm.
So I get Godzilla 2000 vibes off of this one, but what was the inspiration for this piece?
This was a commission for someone that was their original character. They just wanted me they wanted me to amp it up. So I was given some sketches and some different, artwork that they handed me, and then I made it my own way. So I definitely added the textures that I add to things to make them just look good and just put my visual oomph into it. But I think there's a lot of Giger going on in there. There's some alien for sure. A xenomorph looking thing. So There's a lot of that. And
Do you do stuff for like 3D print? Like, do you have to think about how, like, if someone's commissioning you something they want to print, do you think about how things are cut and keyed, or like, are is it like you're just designing it and they're going to do their own thing with it?
Now that I'm 3D printing on a regular basis, I absolutely thinking about that all the time. I wish I thought about that from the get-go because I didn't. On this piece, I never intended for it to be 3D printed, so I've never had it 3D printed, but it would probably look great, but it would also might be a nightmare because I didn't think of it as a 3D print.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very wise to do it now, especially if you're just getting into it, but you know you're gonna be 3D printing, then you gotta know that stuff.
True.
And it's boring, cutting and keying. It's not fun.
You know, the way Mike does
No,
it, he makes it very entertaining.
I will tell you this: the end result is so worth it.
Oh, sure. It's definitely worth it, but it's not actually fun to do. Or maybe it's fun for you because you can turn your brain off and just roll with it and just have fun because you know
the ends justify the means for me. Like that part is not fun, but you know what? I'm like you when it comes to UVs. Like I know those are like the vegetables of artwork for me, right? Like I know that I need them in order to do anything of substance in Substance Painter. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
But I hate them, man. Like I hate that. Like Bradley and we have a friend named Tony, and they're just like, oh yeah, I'll make my UVs.
I don't know why you don't like order. Like it's
I hate order. I'm more of a chaos.
We need to embrace these things because I think they're gonna level up our work.
Oh, you are 1,000% right.
If we are this good now without doing that shit, imagine when we start doing it. I think that's we need.
Dude, I want to see your and my stuff.
I don't want none of you to do it. Don't do it.
No. Stop it. I want to see. Listen. You know what? This is perfect, Joe, because we can push each other because we're both in the same damn boat.
Right.
We will force each other to get this down and go into Substance Painter. Maybe we'll record that. That would be fresh. Like two noobs in Substance Painter trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And at the end, we can be like, look what I did.
I thought you were using it already. I thought you've been using it for years. Like,
I wish, man. I wish.
Looks that good to me.
If you know Photoshop, you know Substance.
Yeah, I did. I used Substance one time on a Carnage, and the file that I had was no lie, like 9 terabytes or some crazy amount. It was so big. I don't know what the hell I did, but it was wrong. It was 1,000% wrong.
I actually just used UVs like for the first time to do monster scales, and it worked really, really well. Yeah. If you want to go like to the first line of my images on ArtStation, you'll see like a blue monster. It's always by the no to AI right next to him.
Okay, the purple guy.
Yeah,
the purple guy.
now, if you want to talk about uniform scales, you'd swear that this was a nightmare, but this thing was the easiest thing I've ever done because the UVs handle it all, and then you just turn the texture to you make it actual sculptural detail with one click, and boom, you have scales all over this thing that are in uniform and not, and it helped me out. Like I thought it was going to be 13 hours of individual scaling, and it turned into like 20 minutes of work. So
and so we know it makes sense. We know there's a reason for this.
Yeah, it's a very.
I just don't like doing it.
It's not realistic at all. It wasn't supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a very minimal toy, and that's fun. That's why it looks like that. But still, that would have been, if I had to do that any other way, I don't even know how I would have handled it.
Exactly.
So this reminds me of the rubber suit Godzilla.
That's the original Gamera, right?
That's the Showa era Gamera. That's man in suit.
Yeah.
Looking
I love
like
it.
A man in a suit. But yeah, I love it too. That's a monster to me,
So you're a fan of the original shows. Let me ask you this. My buddy and I in high school, so I have a friend that this has been my man since high school. And even still we joke about this, but we would watch the old Godzillas, and remember they would like run towards each other, and they're clearly guys running towards each other, and then they would leap, but their feet would be in front of them like they're sitting down, and their tail would be dragging on the floor, on the ground. And it's just like for like a mile or two, they're just in that stance where they just got the feet out and everything, like in a recliner.
Physics be damned.
Yeah, exactly. This one is fresh. Bradley pulled up one of my favorites of yours. This is dope as hell, man.
Yeah,
I love
this
it.
thing is great. The Wampa from Star Wars.
Sweet.
It's
That
it's
fur
a
must have been a
nightmare of
monster,
fur.
dude.
Yes, yes.
Sheesh.
This
How
is
long
a-
did that fur take you?
This took a long time, and this was a client job too. It was a private
Wow.
commission, but it was through an art director. And
Okay.
it was he was very particular about his
I'm
fur.
sure.
And they were,
Yeah.
thank God for that, because that's how you learn how to deal with critiques and what people are paying you to do. And
Yeah.
we got through it, and then the end result is totally worth it because it does look really good. And it was,
Yeah.
the crazy part is it's like I don't really do that much Star Wars stuff, but then I just kept getting more Star Wars work after that.
Dude.
But I also don't particularly love doing fur because it's hard and it takes time and it's
Right?
hard. You
But
mess
you
up,
know what? You
redo.
killed it though, man. Like that's the
Yeah,
thing.
like,
When
I was gonna say, like, the flow, like you can clearly see the nice flowiness of how things are going, and then
Yeah.
the transition changes that you're making
Yeah,
with it. It's
yeah.
it's
That
it's
was
great.
out absolutely intentional because I would you sculpt the muscle masses and then you just follow that, and then you also have to pay attention to gravity and what's going on in the scene and which way the muscle's moving and stuff. But then essentially you just, once you have the muscles in, then you just shove geo on top of it and just start sculpting the fur. So like for a while there was like thousands of subtools because every patch of fur I had, it because I knew the client was going to nitpick. So I
Yeah.
was trying to help myself by having everything adjustable, but then that turns into a nightmare of just clicking to different subtools over and over and over. And then before you know it, you're wasting time doing that. So, you have to get to a point where you're like, all right, I got to make this look good fast so I can get this over with. But eventually we got there. But I do remember this job taking very long.
I bet.
Did
Yeah.
you do this? Did you do the fur in pose, or were you in like a neutral pose, and then after getting the fur, you posed it?
No, I posed it first and then did the fur.
My man.
But it was a great
My man.
question because I think it was symmetrical as long as it could be. But
Yeah.
I knew that I had to do the fur once it was posed.
That's what I'm talking
That
about.
means that you did this. That means you did this hand twice. You telling me you did this
Yup.
hand twice? You put the fur on this hand twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a
I don't-
soldier, Bradley. He ain't no sucker, man. That's how a real brother gets down. Pose it first, then do that tedious thing twice.
Yeah, like twice.
Right.
That's
yeah.
right. That is right.
But it looks great. It looks
Yeah, it
looks
does.
amazing.
And the
I
thing
love
is,
the snow, man. That whole it's funny because overall it's just a bunch of white stuff, right? But it couldn't look
Right.
more different.
right. Yeah, exactly. That's a testament to just
Hell
texture.
yeah.
Just, you got to find good reference for your textures because, yeah, exactly. If colors aren't going to break up your shapes, then textures they have to deliver.
Did you use like any noise or something on the snow? How'd you get that really nice texture on the snow on the
There's
base?
probably alphas. I think I had a
Yeah.
bunch of alphas for snow, for
Wow.
different kinds of snow faces, and
Yeah.
then maybe a couple of
You made
brushes.
them yourself or you kind of just collected them?
I think I collected them, or like I said, I work so fast. I don't
Yeah.
recall exact workflows. If I
Yeah.
need something I don't
Look
have,
at that,
I make
Bradley.
it, and then I forget I made it,
Man.
and then I'm making the same thing 10 times on different projects because I'm so
Wow.
fast and I don't keep track. But
Wow, man. I love this piece. That is dope. Bradley, can you go back to the fly guy? It looks like the fly is wearing a suit and has a fly head. That's another one of my faves.
yeah, it's a fun one.
I think it's up a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of the more recent. There he goes.
There you go.
Next to Leatherface.
That is dope, man. Right there. You got your finger right on. You're right on
here. Okay.
There he goes.
Yeah. I love that, man.
Yeah, and this was another one out of my comfort zone because I'm not doing too much fashion clothing and drapery.
Did you do that in Marvelous or you sculpted it in ZBrush?
That's all ZBrush. I don't know how to use Marvelous.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is my we're brothers for another mother, Bradley. Same deal. That looks good, man.
There might even be like texture on there, sculptural texture on there, but I'm not sure. But it's definitely enhanced in Keyshot.
The pieces that look like hair, are those fiber mesh?
Yes, it's a mixture though. There's definitely chunks that are sculpted that I just copied, like repeated, and then there's fine fur on top of that.
Yeah.
That is fiber mesh.
Was this another commission?
No, this was. I was itching to do this for years, and then I finally had a minute.
Yeah.
I banged it out pretty quick. It's
Nice.
not the best, but it got the point across.
Okay.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's just render
That's
tests.
what's up, dude.
Because you get.
Oh, this is a good thing.
I like to show like early steps where things are like just coming together. Because there you go, you just see like how fast and loose that suit really is. It's just mushed clay.
Yeah.
So the texture on the suit, is that like a key shot cloth material?
It might, yeah, it's definitely that. I probably
Okay.
threw something on, and then with lighting or with HDMI backgrounds, whatever, it probably popped the detail even more. But yeah, without that, it would look probably flat like this.
What's really cool in showing this, like even though like the piece, like the fly is super detailed in the end, but your shapes are solid. Like looking here, like it looks like you're able to simplify it, but then because you have the simple shapes, you're able to make it more complex as you go up your pipeline. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a good gesture to it. Like that pose is not boring. He feels to me kind of like a swinger with the shirt unbuttoned down to the thing. Like he looks like he just came from a club to me. Like he's stumbling back home after being at the club all night long.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression you get for sure. Like
Nice.
He's not just a fly guy. He's drunk too.
Dude, the sketch is nice, man. I like that too. Okay.
Yeah, it's fun.
Wait, is that
That's-
a filter that you used on Photoshop, or you?
That's a matte. You just throw it on your finish, and it looks like you do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I just love doing that and throwing that in as an extra. It's just it's just cool to see. I did nothing for it. I just threw it. I just
It
threw
didn't cost you anything.
Yeah, it cost nothing, and everyone's happy to see it.
That's awesome. Yeah, you could do like a
I
graphic
hate to see
novel.
a reference board for this. It'll scare me.
It was just lots of pictures of like the movie because it's one of my earliest childhood scary monster movies that I saw as a kid. And in the beginning when you're learning ZBrush, there's things you won't go near. Anything with hair, you don't do because you don't know how to do hair when you're starting ZBrush. So you put that off on the back burner. So this was something that got put on the back burner for so long because I was so intimidated by how was I going to do the fur on the head. And then one day you realize I've done that 15 times already for other jobs. I can do that in 2 minutes. And you also realize a lot of things that scare you are done in 2 seconds with menu tweaks.
Yeah.
So
I love the black and white render of it. That's everything because it really feels like the old movie.
Yeah. I was happy with it too.
So is the return of the fly before the fly?
There was the fly, and then the return of the fly was like the third one. I think there's another one in between.
It was the return of the Mac.
Mike, was there another one that you wanted to?
I also pulled the skull crawler from the Kong Island.
You gotta help me out.
Maybe much lower down.
Yeah, go down. You know the one that has the skull on it from the movie. Did you watch that one?
I watched all of them, but
that Godzilla with the blue, the fins on his back that are electric blue. Look awesome.
I see it. It's in the bottom row so far. Now you just went past it. It's bottom row.
Yeah, right. Second from the left on. Go up. Next to the one that looks like a cobra on a scorpion.
Here. Okay, this one.
Yeah.
No, the other one. This is
Bradley. He's got a skull on his head. He's got a skull for a head.
Hey man, the other one is the other one.
Right there. Stop.
This one.
There you go. Yes, sir. So did you do sculpting for the one that was ultimately used in the film, or you did this after the film?
No, this is
just personal.
Fun. I did this for fun because I loved what I saw in the movie.
Okay.
So I just wanted to. That's why I'm inspired by these things. So I see it and I want to do it myself. So
dude, that looks like a still from the film to me.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It looks pretty good. I looked at what was there. There's good reference online, and then I just wanted to do it myself to mimic those forms to learn what can be learned by sculpting it. You'd be surprised what you learn as you sculpt something that already exists. Like there's characters that I hate that I thought I hated, but then I got commissions to do them, and I'm like, okay, I got to sculpt this thing that I don't like. And then by the time I'm done sculpting it, I have a newfound respect for it, for its design language involved, and the thought processes involved, and and then you just fall in love with something as you go.
I was going to ask you
realize
because
his eye is here, not here.
Yeah, the real eye is like a green little dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The eye is, which makes it look like a skull. It's like it must be like a nasal cavity or something.
So I was going to ask you about this guy because he's a very controversial monster. People either love him or they hate him, and I have friends that are like, "Oh, I hate that skullhead guy." But the more I look at it, and the way that it moved in the film, it looked kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about it? You like it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I know that it was based on this weird two-legged lizard that you see in the original King Kong that's climbing up the side of a mountain. Real quick, you see it. It's just climbing up the side of the mountain while King Kong is screwing around with somebody on a log.
Yeah.
And they based it on that, but then they gave it anatomy and characteristics that seem like it could be a real creature in the animal kingdom, but it's clearly not. There's nothing like it there. So I think that's what I love about what they're doing for MonsterVerse. They really capture like what isn't, and they make it what is in such a beautiful way. They make these things that don't exist look like they not only do they exist, but they existed before we have.
Yeah. So clearly that's one of the ones that you went in and you did some retopo and probably have UVs for, right?
No.
Oh no?
There's no UVs on that one. It's all.
Oh wow! Good. You already did the hard part. Like you did the hard part already.
Yeah, I mean the hard.
I love seeing your process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Look at that crap. It looks like garbage.
That's cool.
That's how you do it. You just throw information where it needs to be. So like if you were using Z spheres, it would have looked something like that. You would have pulled out the fingers, you would have pulled out the arms, pull out the tail, pull out bottom jaw, top jaw.
Sure.
So now that's me pulling like that big spherical shape in the center. That was the ball, and then I pulled out the tail, pulled out the head, start chopping pieces off. So essentially, it's the same thing. As soon as you hit adaptive skin on that, it looks like this anyway. So
nice.
This is awesome. Like so what's going to be awesome when we Mike and I always say like when we start our stream, like it may look funny when we start, but we're gonna land something. It's gonna be right in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also feel like I'm so basic at what I do that I have nothing to teach. And I know that's not the way to look at it, really, but I feel like I have nothing to teach. Everyone's doing it better than I am. So, but
Joe, to go from this to this,
yeah.
It is not an easy journey.
No,
you know what?
It's definitely for him in one day too, because I from beginning to end, from beginning sculpt to finish render, it was one day. Because I remember saying to myself, "Damn, that's fast."
Wow.
But and I also did it for fun because he's not much there. He doesn't really have spikes, and he doesn't have wings, and he doesn't have.
If this were me, I would have this guy just doing push-ups because it looks like all he's built for is just push-ups. Crazy upper body strength. That's all he's got.
Push-up lizard.
Yes, sir.
This is awesome. One day.
That's funny.
Crazy.
Yeah, I love it, man. You know what? So you have always worked as a freelancer, right?
For what I'm doing now, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you, I mean, now it's post-COVID, so people can relate with this more now. But I've been freelancing since 2003. And whenever I tell anybody that, they're like, wow, how do you not go crazy being by yourself? So how was that when you first started doing it? And then B, I know this is the interview type stuff, but you have to do this every day. How do you keep yourself motivated?
To me, it's probably a lot like you. I don't even think about it anymore. I've been doing this freelance working from home thing since 2010.
Yeah.
So that's a long time. I'm just good like that. And then in that time frame, I lived alone, then lived with a girlfriend for a good chunk, like 6-7 years, and now I'm living alone again. Well, with family, but I'm like single again. So it's like I don't really think about getting alone somewhere. I mean, I have a dog, but yeah. But in terms of like handling dry spells, honestly, that's when I just call that video game time, because something always falls into your lap, and if not, that's why you have to do your personal art. You like, if you have too much time on your hands and you're playing too many video games, you got to stop and do something in post and show the world that you're still at what you do. Because if you disappear for too long, then that's it. You're gone. You shot yourself in the foot. And
is there a bucket list personal piece that you'd like to work on that you haven't maybe done yet? Like from any franchise, like video, like anime or video game or anything you just want to do?
Oh yeah, there's so many personal things that I want to work on. Like I'd love to do a Predator for myself, just because I love Predator. An Alien, a Xenomorph, because I love them. And the Incredible Hulk was one of my favorite characters of all time. I don't feel my human anatomy is there, so he's been put on the back burner since day one. For 13 years now, I'm like, my anatomy's got to be on point for the Hulk. So I'm not. I can't put a jacket on him and hide that shit. But I can't cover him in scales even. So he's got to look good.
Time to pick him back up.
Mike, respect to you big time, because you killed it.
Bro.
You killed it. But yeah, I mean, these are things like there's so many. There's still a ton of Godzilla monsters I haven't done that I want to do.
Yeah.
But that's, personal stuff is personal stuff. But I tell you, like I used to hear that fan art would never get you work, and don't do it and don't waste your time. And lots of artists frown upon that. If I didn't do it, I would have no career. So on the flip side of that, I'm like, fan art gave me what I have now.
Sure.
It's So
yes.
And if it keeps you motivated and keeps you practicing, by all means, you do as much fan art as you want. If you feel like doing it, do it. I mean,
you know what you do that's smart too, and I say this not to pat myself on the back, but there are times we know as freelancers, it's feast or famine all the time. It's never just in that sweet spot where I don't have too much work, but I have just the right amount of work, right? For me, it's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
So I was telling someone the other day that was asking me about, well, what do you do when it's slow? What do you do when you don't have anything? And it's that personal work that you're talking about, Right. So I think that's part of the reason why I've gotten better at ZBrush and anatomy, especially because my anatomy was crazy. Like 4 years ago was garbage, but I would just practice. And then Bradley and I start sculpting together, and then we're like, you know what, we should record this, And so now we don't have a choice. If we don't want to look silly with guests, we got to step it up, No,
that's a brilliant idea, actually, because I was streaming with Pixelogic for a little while there, and I found myself like slowly becoming used to doing that, because I've never sculpted live before, and I never, like I said, I always feel like I have nothing to teach. So, well, who cares? Why is anybody going to watch me do what I do? But as I'm doing it, I'm like, wow, this is the perfect excuse to sit down and just do what I want. And I can't stop for 2 straight hours. Right. So there's no screwing around. There's no like walking away because people are going to watch a dead air. So you're stuck there. So you might as well just do something good. And there's something to that. So if you just like wake up one morning, and even though you don't have a job, and you take one of your personal projects and make that your job for the day, and you'd be surprised what you can actually achieve. And if you treat it like it's client work, you'll get it done.
That's right. And you can get work from that personal job. Yeah, and you can get work from that personal job.
Oh, 100%. That's why personal stuff. Plus personal stuff, you're probably putting more of your heart and soul into it, and more care and finesse, because it's representing you, and you're not getting paid for it. But that's the stuff that gets you the real gigs, for sure.
Yeah. This is a monster that grew on me. At first, when I saw it in the movies, I was like, what about this guy? But now, I kind of like this now. What about you?
Oh, man, I love that thing. I love that thing from the get-go. It's so otherworldly looking.
Yeah.
It's so strange. I really, really liked it.
And he feels like he's just doing shrugs all day long. Like all of your guys remind me of like they're just in the gym. So this is the shrug guy. You know?
This is
Got
awesome.
neck muscles for days. Which one of these is your favorite? I know you have a favorite on your page.
I can't even. I like the way this one actually looked at. Like I said, I do like I like the villains. I like the villains from comic books. I know most of my work is like Godzilla monsters or creatures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when I do get to do a superhero villain, I like to do them justice. You know, the superheroes not so much because I don't know, they're not as monstrous looking. Even though Apocalypse to me is a monster. He's a man, but he's a monster.
Yeah.
Abomination is a monster.
Yeah.
And you know, I can put myself into that stuff. So
what's that piece with the people on the couch? Because I saw that it's like a live action thing. Was that for a commercial?
That was a commercial in Chile with a famous soccer player or something. And that monster, I sculpted that monster, and somebody reached out one day and was like, you do monsters? Do you have a monster I could put in my commercial?
Nice.
And I was like, here, take this one. And they put him in, and then I finally got this little clip from him.
That's cool, man.
Like one of my most liked pieces or one of my most viewed reels on Instagram. It's crazy. Probably because of the soccer player, not because of the monster though. Yeah. But it looks cool. That's one of the first times I saw something I did animated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is nice too.
Dude, that's sweet.
That show, right?
That's the other one I meant to say I love the most, man. Like I love that show, and you really made that dinosaur look great, man.
That show is so like that's must-watch television for me.
Yeah.
It's like stop what you're doing, watch Primal, and then you want to go back to work afterwards. You want to sculpt something after you watch. It's just like
Bradley, are you all caught up with Primal?
I don't even know what this is.
Oh my god. No.
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's scary, but it is brutal.
I told him about this before. He's selectively forgot not to watch it.
Yeah, I don't know if blood and guts bothers you.
I mean,
great animation. They don't talk at all, but it's just fantastic action.
They don't talk, so there's no.
You're not going to miss it.
What moves the plot forward?
You don't. They make it happen.
I had to explain, but it's more engaging than things that have dialogue.
That is true.
It conveys more than you would even imagine that something with no dialogue can.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about this is that you're able to like I know it's from a known IP, but you're able to do something super detailed, but still transition to something that like this is all shape. Right, so you're not relying on the alpha or the noise frequency. This is like nice, clean shape language, and like this is nice.
Right.
I love
Thank you. This is the step before I say, all right, let's hit it with some alphas and detail it. Like it's got to. If this doesn't look right, then I just keep whacking at this until it's ready. But without this, you're just hyper detailing a turd.
Did you ever think to maybe take this piece that you have already and then try to make it look realistic with your alphas, and show it to the Primal guys?
On this particular piece, no, not yet. That would be interesting. And
I bet you,
that would be.
I bet you tag those guys, man. They probably would hit you back real fast.
That's not a bad idea. But yeah, like that would be a great example of it, because that skull, that thing that went up for a second and then disappeared, that was like a scorpion with a skull face. That is actually a realistic take of a cartoon character from a cartoon series, Godzilla.
Where do I know that from?
It's the Godzilla animated series. Godzilla in the series, and it looks more like the dinosaur that you like. That's more of what it looked like in the cartoon without any textures. And then above is like the more realistic, if it looked like it was in a movie. But I didn't really change anything except for the textures.
Okay.
So that would be a good example of doing what you just said to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a great show. Bradley, you gotta, I mean, the way that you were trying to get me to watch Bleach, I'm telling you, like if you watch one episode of Primal, you'd be hooked. Okay. All right. So I think we are almost at the 2nd hour mark for the artwork. Cool. And dude, you know, for you guys, you're watching part 2 on its own. For Bradley and I, we've been sitting with Joe for 2 hours, but it doesn't feel like 2 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and close us out. Just so you know, if you stayed with us this long, the little carrot for you is that Joe is going to be our guest for a month. We're going to have him on, and he gets to pick the theme that Bradley and I will work from. So I cannot wait to see what what Joe comes up with us for us rather.
You know what's funny? It's April 1st.
Wow. Yeah.
Our first stream is April Fool's, psych.
No. 100% true.
No, we'll be there.
100% true.
We'll be there.
Yeah. So Joe, I want to say thank you so much, man. I love you are doing what you're doing. I love that you took something that you have enjoyed since you were a kid and managed to make that into a career. That's the best. And I'm really looking forward to having you on the show with Bradley and I. We're fans, and I've been a fan for a really long time. So this is going to be. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you were definitely one of my first ZBrush guys that I had to watch.
Nice, man. Yeah. So we can't wait to have you on. Like Bradley said, it's going to be April 1st. We start with Joe, aka Dope Pope. If you haven't already, we will have links in the interview to his social media. Please do yourself a favor and go check out his work. Reach out to him and tell him how much you love the interview, and then tune back in to check us out. And we'll have Mr. Pope on here, starting off a new guest series with us.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, and follow us on the Stylus League. Peace. Oh, buy some merch, by the way. Buy some merch.